It seems like every time I open my computer these days, there's some brand new news report about a major hiking fatality somewhere in the world. Half Dome, Mount Whitney, Mount Shasta.
That's just California.
I know.
I mean, this is happening all over the US, but the US Forest Service and Park Service don't track fatalities. Other countries do. Italy, for example, more than 200 hikers died in the Italian Alps last year. That's not mountaineers, that's not skiers, that's just hikers.
That's crazy.
This year, it's up over 100. Italian authorities are actually calling it a massacre.
Wow.
Now, we all know that since COVID in 2020, there have been more hikers on trail. More hikers is gonna mean more fatalities, but that's not the only issue at play here.
Some people are blaming social media for bringing more inexperienced hikers out onto trail, and that could be part of the reason, but rather than hypothesizing, we've done the research, and today we will be talking about the 5 major reasons there are hiking fatalities out on trail and also what we can do about them.
The number one reason why hikers die out on trail is falls. Nearly half of all hiking fatalities come from falling.
And the biggest reason for falls on trail is both underestimating and not being fully aware of all the potential dangers.
For example, slickness caused by rain or ice. A lot of you probably heard about last year, a young lady who was hiking Half Dome with her father fell during a rainstorm on the way down and passed away from that fall. Half Dome is a really good example of something that is super fun, tons of people do, but the minute it gets slick, everything changes.
But people just maybe aren't fully aware of that potential danger. They see a bunch of other people going up, they say, oh, I got my permit, I should be good to go, I see the cables, this looks safe, and it's just not really something they've thought through necessarily of, oh, if there's rain that comes, makes this rock slick, it could become a totally different ballgame up there.
We ourselves have had plenty of falls on slick surfaces. Mud on Kalalau Trail, slick melty snow coming down Mount Rainier. But the difference is you have to know where it's safe to fall and where it's not. And in places where it's not safe to fall, you need to be anchored. You need to have 3 or 4 points of contact at all times. It's just a completely different situation when a fall could be lethal or a fall is just slipping in the mud and falling on your butt. It's very important to know the difference between those things. And I think a lot of less experienced hikers don't think about it. They just think, oh, we're on this nice trail. You know, we're here in Hawaii, it's a beautiful ocean view. And they slip in the mud and just wham, right? They just slide 200 feet down and drop off a cliff into the ocean.
I know a lot of people have laughed at us because of our hiking poles. And we laugh when we get laughed at because those poles have saved our lives. When we were slipping off the Kalalau Trail, we were digging our poles in for dear life, and that's what got us across.
Absolutely true. And there's other times when you just hit some unexpected icy conditions or snow conditions, something like that. Sometimes I'll even shorten the poles and almost just get down on my knees and just dig, dig, dig like this. Doesn't matter. I mean, you just do what you have to do to get across slick things.
Now that brings us into the second major reason for falls, which is overestimating your own skills out on trail. After over 10 years of the two of us both doing this kind of thing, I think we have a pretty good sense of where our skills are at, but that's not always the case. And so I learned a very big lesson recently when we were hiking in Red Rock out in Vegas. Adam went up a class 5 chute. I saw him do it. I was like, yeah, I've done class 5 chutes like in a climbing gym before. I'm fine. Let's just say it didn't go well.
Here's the thing, guys. It's not about whether you can do that. You have to know you can do it with 100% certainty. There's a huge difference between something you can climb in a climbing gym at home or just on one of your local trails where you feel comfortable and there's not lethal exposure. And then all of a sudden you're out there and one rock comes off. I mean, rocks aren't falling off the face on the climbing gym.
No.
But I've had rocks just come off in my hand multiple times. And you really need to know you have those other 3 points of contact. You have to be certain that you can handle it when you get up somewhere with exposure. So that means you're doing things that are well below what your actual skill level is. If you get up to something that's anywhere near what your capacity is, then you're gonna wanna be roped, or frankly, just skip it. Turn around or go around.
Another reason to aim for things that are slightly below your skill level is altitude. So you may be able to do really complex skills in a climbing gym when you're at sea level. But factor in now you're at 14,000 feet and you're scrambling across a knife edge like we were doing on Mount Russell.
Oh, that's such a good example.
Everything changes.
Everything changes. For me especially, when I'm up at high altitude, my brain processes slower. My heart's just pounding. I mean, a very simple class 3 traverse at 14,000 feet with exposure seems extremely difficult. Whereas just, at 0 feet,
Like scrambling at Malibu Creek Canyon.
you've seen us
in
do that.
LA.
I literally will leap across traverses when there's no exposure and I'm at no altitude. But when you're up there and your heart's going fast, your hands are maybe a little shaky, you're probably exhausted from the climb up, it really changes everything. And all of a sudden, something that's just a fairly straightforward class 3 becomes really challenging.
So yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is just aim for a slightly lower skill level than what you're capable of when you're just in your normal, comfortable sea level gym environment.
Definitely, much lower. So in addition to making sure that you're always doing things that are well below your skill level, always just bring a rope and know how to use it. We bring a rope on literally every single hike that has any kind of even class 3 terrain, much less class 4 or class 5.
After the fall I took on Mount Wilson, I am no longer afraid to just ask for the rope anytime we're in class 5, potentially even like a sketchy class 4 territory. I just use the rope.
I sent you the rope a couple times on Cathedral in Yosemite.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was great. I mean, I felt so much safer. It was the right thing to do. I didn't let my ego get in the way. I just went for it and it all worked out.
Yeah, so just always bring a rope. You never know when you're gonna need a rope, honestly, or maybe someone else might. You might find someone else on trail who's stuck and you can help them with it. That's happened before with us too. So yeah, always have a rope anytime you're doing class 3 or above.
The second major reason why hikers die in the wilderness is due to rock, snow, and icefall. Now, some of this, of course, is not going to be 100% within our own control. This is also one of the major reasons that the most experienced hikers die out on trail.
It happened when we did Whitney Mountaineers route. Literally 3 days after we did that, a guy was coming across the Eberspacher ledges and just a boulder came down from above and almost took his whole head off. I mean, it's just how it goes.
And that was just totally random. I mean, people go through those ledges every single day, and he just got so unlucky.
However, with that said, a lot of times it's not a big boulder. A lot of times it's a rock that's fist size, let's say. If you have a helmet on, you're probably gonna be okay. You don't have a helmet on, it's probably gonna kill you.
Always wear the helmet.
Always wear the helmet when there's potential for rock and icefall. And what that means is sometimes it might be something like Mount Whitney where you're not really thinking, oh, this is a helmet requiring trail. And it can be both because of natural rockfall, like what happened on the Eberspacher ledges, but also as you're going up the switchbacks, if you're just doing the class 1 trail and not the Mountaineers route, people kicking rocks down happens all the time.
Especially, I mean, if you have people who are not experienced hikers up ahead of you, just be so cognizant of the fact that they're probably not thinking about any of the rocks that they're kicking down. They're not used to shouting rock. They're not used to navigating around the rocks to avoid kicking them down. So I'd be very careful if there were hikers hiking above me.
And that's kind of to the point of, if it's an easier trail, it's more likely there will be inexperienced people on it kicking rocks down. One of the ways that we tend to avoid that is going super early. We like to be out there kind of first ones out anyway, but one of the reasons we like that is that there's no one kicking rocks.
So true. Now, rockfall can happen absolutely any time of year, but it's especially more common in the warm summer months as the snow is melting from the peaks and just bringing all sorts of rock and ice fall down.
Even more so later in the day. When we went up Rainier, as we were coming down, the snow got really, really melty, and we saw some monster rockfall. Remember that one just Toyota-sized boulder that fell as we were kind of crossing this melting glacier part?
So scary.
Really scary. This is really where experience comes in. We and most of the other experienced mountaineers on Rainier started the summit push at midnight so that we could get up and back down through all the really gnarly ice and rockfall areas before it got too melty. Fortunately, all of us made it, but as we were coming down, we passed a group of 3 guys who were still going up. And we were sort of a little raised eyebrow about it. And they said, it's gonna be fine. We'll just put one foot in front of the other. We'll make it up. And we're just thinking, yeah, you're gonna make it up. It's the trip back down with all of the ice and rockfall that's gonna be coming your way that's gonna be dangerous. And I'm sure they probably made it, but they definitely put themselves in a much worse position by starting later on such a hot day. And it's just about knowing that and always putting yourself in a good position. Because if you hike a lot, there's gonna be times when you're in dicey areas, and you wanna be in the dicey areas for the least amount of time at the best times of day, if you can possibly manage it.
The third major reason for hiking fatalities is people getting off trail and completely lost. Now, you all have watched our channel and even we get off trail quite a bit more than one would expect given our experience level.
It's totally true. I mean, sometimes of course we're doing a traverse or something where there is no trail, but even then we get off route, and it's absolutely essential to have GPX.
We have not one GPX, we always have 2 on 2 different phones with backup chargers.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's saved our butts a million times. We couldn't do half of the things we do if we didn't have GPX for backup. A lot of times we think that the way is obvious, and so we just go that way and then check the GPX. It's like, oh, nope, that was a false lead. And if you kept going, you'd be completely cliff bombed.
I mean, we did this just recently on the Enchantment.
It's in true live hard, love hard fashion. We somehow got off route.
We often go the way that we think looks the coolest, and it ends up not being the right route, but we always double check with our GPX. Thankfully on the Enchantments it ended up being fine. But what if it's not fine? What if you're in a really sketchy area at that point and you've gotten yourself somewhere you can't get back?
Exactly. And the Enchantment is a really good example, because we started following up this waterfall because it was beautiful and it was attractive, and there was a sort of a use trail going up that way. And so we just thought we were on trail, and then it started getting really class 4 and a little dicey, and we checked and said, oh my God, we should have gone the other way. And then we had a choice. Do we want to go back down and around, or do we think we can make it? In that case, we thought we could make it up and then back to the trail up above, which is what we did.
We just made this so much harder than it needs to be.
But without the GPX, how would you know? You might think you were still on the right trail, and maybe you don't have the ability to do it. So now you're just really screwed, and you end up doing things that are dangerous, right? Yeah. Or you wouldn't know that you could just easily walk back down, go across, and then come up the regular trail. Gotta have the GPX, even in places where there is a trail, especially if there's not a trail.
I think for especially people who are new to hiking, I would just say it doesn't matter how easy the trail is, just bring a GPX. I'm constantly shocked about how many people come onto a route that is a very well-established trail and they have no idea where the trail ends, how far they are to the end of the trail, how many miles, how many feet of elevation gain. It's pretty shocking, and I think all that it takes is downloading one of these trail apps, putting it onto your phone, and then you have all the information you need.
That actually leads perfectly into the next thing that we want to talk about, which is trying to do things that are beyond your conditioning level. If you have a GPX, you can look, and if you're getting exhausted, you can see, oh, I've got 2 more miles to go to my turnaround point or to the summit or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a GPX, you have no idea how much further you have to go or how much more elevation you have to gain. And a lot of times where people get in real trouble, especially on a hot day, is they just push it beyond the bounds of what they're physically capable of. So the ways you can avoid going beyond your skill level, in addition to having GPX, is just knowing the route beforehand, really gathering the data, reading trip reports, seeing, okay, what have other people said about this? Are they exhausted at the top? Are they feeling like they're gonna get heat stroke? Checking the temperature. Bank on it being 10 to 15 degrees warmer than it says it's gonna be.
That's a really good point. How many times?
So many times.
The weather forecast has just failed us.
It just failed, and it's usually much hotter, not colder. So, and people end up dying of heat stroke, especially in places like Grand Canyon. It happens in Zion. It happens a lot of Utah places. Anywhere it gets really, really hot, especially over 100 degrees, there's people dying of heat stroke every single year, and it's because they're not prepared with enough water. Their bodies aren't ready for it. I remember when we did Cactus to Clouds to Cactus, this might be a little extreme, but I was training in an over 200 degree sauna for a month before we did that. Now, I just enjoy saunas too, so I'm not gonna say that's the only time I sauned.
Adam loves the sauna, he's so bougie.
But that heat on that trail
Yeah.
did not affect me. It really didn't. I had plenty of water, of course, but there was no way I was going to die of heat stroke on that trail. I was ready for that heat.
So in addition to not being prepared for heat or exertion, there's also the risks involved with not being prepared for altitude. So properly acclimating before doing a high altitude climb is so critical for avoiding cerebral edema, pulmonary edema, which are major reasons for fatalities.
Also, even if you don't get cerebral edema and die of something happening in your brain, like we said before, high altitude can certainly make you just a little bit delirious and have a little bit less good balance, things like that, right?
Absolutely.
Remember at the top of Rainier, I was definitely struggling a little bit, and we didn't even know how bad I was until we looked at the Summit Register photograph when we got home, and I had signed it 2015.
I can't believe you did that. I still can't believe you did that.
That's just high altitude. It just makes you a little loopy. And we weren't really well acclimated for Rainier, honestly, and we should have been better acclimated.
Usually we are. Part of the reason we have such a high success rate with a lot of the high altitude climbs that we do is because we put a lot of effort into making sure that we're properly acclimated. Right now, we're planning for a really exciting trip to Nepal. But prior to that, we'll be living at 8,000 feet for a full month, which I know some people might think is overkill, but for us, it's just so important.
Yeah, we're gonna be up at 18,000, 19,000 feet. Living at 8,000 for a while is just good preparation for that.
Yeah. The fifth reason that hikers die out on trail is being unwilling to stop or turn around. And we see this one all the time out on trail, usually as we are coming down. For example, when we were doing Mount Whitney, just via the standard route, we were coming down the switchbacks. We ran into a guy, he was out of water, he was exhausted, and he had so far to go, but he said, no, I'm just gonna keep pushing through. We tried to talk him out of it, but he was determined.
This kind of thing happens a lot on Whitney because it's often people's first high altitude hike. And in fact, just earlier this year, there was a father and son that went up, and as they were coming down, the son was getting like hallucinations, probably from some kind of cerebral edema, just some altitude sickness. And rather than just stop and tie the kid up, I think the dad tried to kind of keep coming down, and the kid ended up having a terrible fall. Really, really good example of when you just need to stop. If someone in your party is hallucinating or really unable to continue, and if you can't, especially if you can't control them, you gotta just tie them up. I mean, that's what rescues are for, right? Yes, sometimes people call rescues obnoxiously, right? Because, oh, my shoes froze overnight, rescue me.
Or the guys who called because their packs were too heavy. Don't be calling rescues for
That is not a good reason to call for a rescue. But if someone's really, really sick and can't safely continue to hike, you need to wrap them up, keep them from doing anything until rescuers get there. That's a really, really good lesson in that one.
And then that just ties directly into the last thing we wanted to talk about, which is just a general lack of common sense sometimes. I think this is where social media comes into play, right? You know, people are seeing something that looks really cool. Maybe they want to get a selfie, and then the next thing they know, they're falling off a cliff in the Grand Canyon to their death.
Yeah, I mean, there's a story recently about an older Korean couple who was on a really gnarly Via Ferrata without any harnesses or safety gear. They just started climbing up the Via Ferrata and got stuck halfway up and had to wait overnight. Like,
I don't understand.
that's just common sense. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that Via Ferratas are incredibly steep and gnarly, and it should be pretty obvious that you don't want to climb that unless you have the skills to do it. That is honestly the biggest thing for us, is always making sure we have the skills and the gear to do the things that we're doing. People often accuse us of doing crazy stuff for social media, right?
Yeah.
Why are you sitting on that ledge to get that shot? It's honestly not true. We never do anything for the camera that we just don't normally do. The reason I sit on ledges for snack spots is that it's a great way to acclimate to vertiginous environments. So that then when I am somewhere dicey and I'm looking down 2,000 feet, my heart's not beating fast, I'm not scared, because I'm used to just having lunch on those spots. But they're always safe. We always are using whatever gear we need to get there safely and to get back down. So probably the biggest thing that we as a community can do to stop hikers from dying on trail is just help people to access their common sense. That means leaving good trip reports on things like All Trails, an honest trip report, don't sandbag it. One of the things, sometimes mountaineers get mad at us for saying, oh, you're really playing up the dangers of that thing, making it seem, no, we're not. We're always just honest about it, because people need to know if it's sketchy.
I know. And or if it's hard. Like if you see it and it's hard for us, it's probably hard. You
Yeah.
know?
So don't sandbag things in either your trip reports or when you're telling people about. Just be honest with them about what the potential dangers are. If you see people climbing an icy thing in trail runners, let them know that it gets really icy up above. Maybe they're Kilian Jornet. Maybe they're going to trail run that whole thing and then keep on going up to the top of Everest. Fine. If they're experienced enough to handle it, that's great. But there's nothing wrong with just kind of giving people the beta that you just came down, letting them know what they're in for. I think that's one of the most helpful things people can do.
Yeah, there's a very kind way to do that. It doesn't have to be safety police. It can just be sharing what you know.
Absolutely. It's not our job to tell people they can't do something, but just letting them know what they're in for, I think is the most important thing. It's certainly what we try to do with all our videos on this channel, is just give an honest feedback about what this hike is, what this climb is. And when you, especially if you see someone who seems a little unprepared for what they're getting into, nothing wrong with just talking to them about it.
So just to wrap it all up, the 5 biggest reasons hikers are dying on trail are falls, rock and ice fall, getting lost, not being willing to turn around, not being physically prepared, and this all just falls under a general use of our common sense.
So if we missed anything, guys, please let us know. If you have any questions, please ask them. We really do want to use like our decade of experience in the outdoors to help people to survive out there, enjoy themselves out there. So a lot of you have a lot of experience too. So please do weigh in on this one.
And we'll see you next time.
See you guys next time out on the trails.
Climbing higher, running faster, going